We do have to admit that the social, educational, and economic model constructed in France and Germany is more satisfactory. These two countries have achieved the highest level of productivity in the world, as high as that in America, but with a much more egalitarian form of distribution. Let's now examine the GDP per capita. We see that it is approximately 35,000 euros per annum, just below 3,000 euros per month, in Europe, a little higher in Germany, a little lower in France and the United Kingdom, or approximately 25% lower than in the United States, roughly the equivalent of 45,000 euros per year. But the important point is that this higher GDP per capita in the United States comes solely from a greater number of hours worked, and not from a higher level of productivity than in France and in Germany. Similarly, the United Kingdom succeeds in compensating for its lower productivity and raising itself to the same level of GDP per capita as France solely as a result of working longer hours. For a better understanding of these discrepancies in hours worked, a distinction has to be made between what comes under number of hours worked per job and what comes under number of jobs per capita. Let's begin with the number of hours worked per job. We observe that the annual average hours worked per job is lower in Germany than in France, the consequence of a higher rate of part-time work, which is not always a choice, but which may be more satisfactory than no employment. Beyond this gap, there again we observe a degree of proximity between the trajectories of France and of Germany. These two countries have chosen to use the very high growth rate of the Trente Glorieuses to appreciably reduce the length of the working day since the 1960s, going from an average length of almost 2,000 hours per year in 1970, which roughly corresponds to 42 hours per week for 48 weeks per year, to less than 1,500 hours per year today, or almost 35 hours per week for 44 weeks per year. In contrast, the United States and the United Kingdom have barely reduced the amount of time worked. As a result, the weeks have remained very long, and the paid leave very short, often restricted to 2 weeks, in addition to public holidays. Obviously, I am not attempting to claim that it is always preferable to reduce the working day and to lengthen the vacations, and the question of the rate at which the time worked should be reduced is an extremely complex and sensitive problem. But it does appear to be clear that one of the aims of the growth in productivity in the long term is to enable the benefit of more time for private and family life,